Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
And welcome everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 135. That's the golden tones of Alec Webb, our announcer. Thank you, Alec. And welcome everyone to another one of our chats, I guess is the what they would call it. Chit-chats.
All we need is a fireside.
Around our table today, no fire, maybe in our bellies, I hope a little bit. Writer-producer Brian Robinson.
Hello.
He's always fired up, can't you
I was
tell?
expecting more of that.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay.
Started talking about fires and stuff. I can't.
Run the brakes.
But that's Ben Davis, our road test producer.
Good
He's
to see
always
you,
kind of fired up.
You, and I've had too much coffee, so this should be cool.
Assistant producer Greg Carlos.
That is me.
And our writer Patrick Lucas.
Cheers, everybody.
And if you're wondering, we're all in the Baltimore area, and we're all sick and tired of digging ourselves out of a lot of snow. So this is a good respite to have a chance to talk with you today. And we'll have our lightning round, a viewer question. Maybe from the snow, there'll be a couple of rant and raves. I think I could come up with a couple.
I think everybody's just boiling about everything at this point.
And but we want to talk about we just got back from our winter testing session, which we do at a racetrack called Roebling Road, and it's right outside of Savannah, Georgia, and the lovely town of Bloomingdale, Georgia. And we had a chance to go down with some very, very hot and interesting cars this year. We're going to start the show off by talking about, well, really three of them. But let's start with the car that was kind of the star of the track, I think, and that was the Dodge Viper ACR, which is their club racer.
Did we vote that the star?
Well, I think considering all the support group that was sent with the car, it kind of
in that case, yeah, definitely.
It kind of was the center of attention.
It was certainly laying down lap times that no one else could touch. So in that regard,
we unofficially, or we shouldn't say we, one of the folks that came with the car unofficially set a track record on street tires, knocked I think about 2 or 3 seconds off of the best times that we've had down there, and we've had some pretty good times down there. What do you think? Special Viper, does it require all this attention?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the ACR, stands for American Club Racer, and it's exactly that. It's a car you can just go into your Dodge dealer and buy strictly to go racing. You can still drive it on the street, but it's not really made for that. It's made to be on the track. There's no engine upgrades, but it's got huge brakes, a ton of aero treatments, and an all-new shocks and suspension setup. So
three-way racing harness.
Oh, yeah.
5-way.
Is it 5-way?
Yeah. So, it's just made to go club racing.
Now, it really is reasonably docile on the street, but to actually, when the team that was there with the car put all the aero accoutrements on the car and took a couple of things off too, is it really a car, do you think, that could be driven, I wouldn't say every day, but say weekends on the street? Was it that's
with
civilized?
If you got the suspension adjusted for street use and the front splitter and rear diffuser are removable, so you can take those off. It's no different than
pretty much.
Yeah, it's no different than driving any other Viper on the street. There's some less sound deadening and. I'm
going to say, the biggest thing you probably have to put up with is just the fanfare that comes along with it. Every stop sign you're at, you could cause an accident with the amount of people who stop and try and take pictures and stuff.
The Viper is scheduled to go away in 2017, although there's already rumors that there'll be a successor car coming down the line. I wonder if the question everyone's asking is whether this is going to be the ultimate current generation Viper or not. What else could they do to it?
Oh, they could certainly put more motor under the hood, not physically bigger, but they could get more horsepower out of the engine.
All-wheel drive.
I don't think that's in the cards, although it certainly probably could use it, given how much torque it has to lay down.
I don't know, but it's the amount of downforce that car produces.
It's pretty amazing.
If you push it the right way, and a lot of us aren't nearly as talented as the guy they had sent out, but he was pushing it. He didn't really seem to lose much traction at all if you know how to treat it right.
Now, that was one of the points that FCA made, that this took extra chutzpah, I guess, bravery to push that car through essentially like a sound barrier wall to where it would really perform.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody at this table feel like they did that?
Yeah, for sure, but it's mainly comes if you've driven Vipers before and you know that there's a really sharp edge that you're going to fall off if you push the thing. Whereas this thing, it just didn't have that. If you've never driven a Viper before, it probably wouldn't be a big deal to you, but it just had way, way, way more grip than any other Viper you've ever driven.
You got through that fear factor.
Yeah. The thing just, no matter how hard, no matter how hard you pushed it stuck, no problem.
Where the Viper, if you haven't driven one, they're traditionally extraordinarily tail happy. Anybody
They
else?
look like a push mower with that rear wing on the back of it so big.
Well, I've forgotten how much downforce he told me it generated.
I had
Do you
it was like
remember?
1,200 or something
Yeah.
like
Eight-
that.
something. It
like
was a
one-
lot.
It's over a ton. I know that.
Yeah.
Wow, over a ton.
Or 1.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
1,500
hardcore.
pounds.
Yeah. I thought
You would
that was,
think that it
was
would.
a number.
The mounts would push through the deck lid. How could the mounts that hold the wing on, I guess, create an? Is it overall downforce?
Overall. And it's like 1.5 Gs capable in the quarter. Maybe that's what
That's
I'm thinking of, the
insane.
1.5.
That'll take years off your life pulling that.
We had some pretty impressive cars at Roebling this year, and I got to say that was really a car that did actually turn more heads.
I feel like any other year we probably would have easily named that one the star, but you're right, we did have a lot.
Moving on to two cars that are a little bit more accessible, we had a pair of or should say a pair of Cadillac V-Series cars. We had a CTSV and an ATSV. We had the two automatics. How did they differ? Did you feel like they were from the same stable as all the hoopla? I mean, we've given rave reviews to both cars before. I enjoyed my limited time in both of them. I find them incredibly civilized and good motors on each. But you're the guys who really wrung them out on the track. What'd you think?
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe they're too civilized. I mean, they both have serious power. The ATS with the Turbo 6 and the CTS with the V8. But
CTS sounded awesome, I thought.
Yeah. Well, it sounds awesome outside the car. Inside the car, you can barely hear the engine. So
That's like classic GM taking out every possible sound on the cabin.
yeah. So maybe, I don't know, for outright track performance, maybe they're too civilized, but I don't see too many people, these buyers, doing in track days anyway. So,
Do you think, though, they warrant the reputation we and others have been giving them as being, if not on par, darn close to the best that, say, the Germans can produce?
I would say for sure.
Yeah, they're knocking on the door at the very least.
What bothers me about the V Series a little bit is really has nothing to do with the cars themselves. I wonder if they're getting as much notice as they should because so many people these days are not buying cars. I mean, everywhere you turn, everybody wants to talk about SUVs, and that's all they want to talk
And
about.
now that there's performance SUVs, at least the Germans are really on top of that.
Yeah, and I think that in that area with the new SUV from Cadillac, the CT-5, they may have maybe a while before they get into that vogue. But I don't know, a super high performance SUV has never made that much sense to me anyway. But
I think GM's they got so much new out right now, especially in performance with the Z06 and Camaro. I mean, I'm sure this stuff tends to get lost.
did you feel the character of the two cars was different? In other words, okay, you got the two cars. They're from basically, they're from the same brand, although their roots are different. Did you feel that the cars were kin, or did you feel like since one's got a Corvette motor and one's got a 6 that they were really different animals?
I felt that I think they had the same basic principle down. I would say that the ATS was more like track oriented, like road course oriented, and I felt like that was really locked down. Not to say the CTS wasn't, but the CTS was really a monster down the straights with that supercharger, and just the whine of the supercharger was a much different experience for me driving that one. So, I mean, it just really depends what you want. You want to go fast in a straight line, or do you really want to
have more agility in the corners?
So I think there was enough of a differentiation there.
The other side of the table's been kind of quiet.
Yeah, really. That's because we're not complaining about it.
Maybe. I would say maybe the ATS, the twin turbo 6 nature, would be more comparable to 3 Series BMWs and stuff like that. Just because most of your European offerings are turbo 6s, twin turbo 6s. And the CTS is more straight up American in your face, Mustang, Corvette, but only big enough to take 5 people.
Patrick, you own a German sedan.
I do.
So what do you think? Not a performance, but still, you are attuned to how they design and living with one of their products every day. What do you say?
Button is that button. I really like the CTSV, which is surprising.
Interesting.
Because I don't usually like big sedans.
Hey, I wouldn't have guessed that for you.
But, yeah, I think Ben and I were talking when we really cleaned his glasses over there. When we were going to dinner one night, we were talking about how the CTS is really like a sleeper. Doesn't really look that menacing until you get really up close to it, but once you hear it and you drive it, it's ridiculous.
Where'd you guys go?
There's so much power.
You were probably there.
Was it good?
We went where we all went. But yeah, I really enjoyed the CTSV. The ATSV I always liked when we had it in here with the manual. I really loved that. The automatic didn't really do it for me, but it did feel very nimble and surprisingly quick. So yeah, I enjoy both of them, and I would have no problem picking it over a German.
I mean, they're both on the same chassis basically now, and so they have a similar feel. Just that supercharged V8 is a big differentiator.
I thought that
in
was
the
a
CTSV.
huge difference. I mean, it puts a lot more weight over the front end, but gosh, down the straight. Okay, well, I think we've beat those three to death. Let's move on now to our lightning round. Our panelists have 2 minutes to debate the trending automotive topic that we're going to cough up here in just a second. And at the end of that 2 minutes, Patrick will hit the bell, and we may or may not stop at that point. All right. We are recording this about 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. What do you think the role of automobile ads on TV play during the Super Bowl and in general? What's the best way for automakers and, for that matter, dealers to advertise today to get people's attention? Because sales going in, automakers will make up a huge percentage of the Super Bowl ads. Local dealership ads are something in the order of 60% of all the local advertising content. Is that still smart?
I think it's necessary. I don't think they're as big of a deal as they were years ago. I think you still have to make an effort. You can't just go into the Super Bowl and say, you know what, we're going to save the money.
That's been tried.
And just use Twitter and Facebook and whatever else, I think that you still have to at least make an effort to put out a good commercial, because think about it, it's the most watched event.
Not only that, chances are your whole family is going to be together at one time in front of the TV, and that way,
where's your company?
Everybody can wave. Oh, honey, I like that car. Oh, yeah, me too. Let's get it. And so it's that one time when everybody sees it at once.
I mean, yeah, they certainly generate a lot of buzz, and I guess it kind of carries over now with they advertise, and then they advertise stuff on Twitter, hashtags and stuff like that. So it spills over into social media, which is, I guess, where the biggest amount of advertising comes from. So I guess it does work.
And not only that, now with social media, that same commercial will get tons of play,
exactly.
Even more so than it would if it just ran on TV.
Yeah,
so now you say, I like that commercial. I want to go find it. And it's so easy to find now, and you'll get so many hits.
And leading up to the Super Bowl and afterwards, there'll be all sorts of discussions on all sorts of media platforms. Which were the best ads? What did you think of so-and-so's ads? They'll all be up there for you to judge basically before the Super Bowl starts, at least most of them.
Didn't Cadillac reveal a car last year? Wasn't it the CT6
a couple years
or something?
ago.
Yeah,
CT6 they did. Then they did
Maserati debut the Ghibli.
The Ghibli. They did.
I remember years ago, Kia did the Optima, and it was the aliens coming down from space.
Chrysler did. That's the
one
I'm thinking of. They did the 200 with them, or not?
That's right.
With Motley Crue.
No,
Made in
it
Detroit.
was
Made in Detroit.
Yeah. I remember. And actually, when they were just doing their turnaround, the import from Detroit, and that brings up an interesting question, because it seems to me that maybe since Super Bowl ads are all about image, I wonder if sometimes it's not better to make them pure image plays, like in the case of FCA. Before it was FCA, Chrysler was turning around, and they used it as an announcement that they were back. And even if they didn't have a car that anybody cared about yet. So it is an all-image play. I've been critical in the past, thinking it's a waste of money, but all you got to do is look at the companies that just, skyrocket once nobody's ever heard of them. They run a Super Bowl ad, and I think more times than not they do pretty well by it.
Slightly off topic, what do you think about commercials that like their only point is to get you then to go to the website? Like they show like half a commercial and they say to find out what happened, go to.
It's fine, I guess, for anybody a lot younger than I am. But, a lot of people, as you get on in years, they become less connected from technology. And aren't you leaving people out of that video?
I personally don't like that.
That was fun. We should also talk sometime about whether or not local car ads, dealership ads, do any good or not.
Write it down.
When they about 5 of them in a row.
We can save that for the rant and rave.
Yeah. All right, let's move on now to a viewer question. Kirby has this one, and it's a good one. He wants some advice on run-flat tires. He says, I don't like them for the following reasons. They ride harder. They often can't be repaired. They are expensive. They don't last as long as conventional tires. You're out of luck if the nearest service station is 50 miles away when you get a puncture, over 50 miles. What is the truth, and what are your thoughts about run flats? Well, I think you pretty much summed up.
I don't know if he wants advice. He just wants us to agree that they
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'll make a couple points. I think we all, Kirby, basically agree with you on the OEM stuff that we've seen, and you should make one more point that if a car's got OEM run flats, generally you cannot put another tire on that rim. Or if you do, you screw up some of the electronics in the car because of the sensors involved with them. So I do know for a fact that most of them you can drive more than 50 miles. They just do that 50-mile limit on it to keep you from going crazy.
How many miles did you do?
I know somebody that's put
6,000?
like 1,000 or more miles on it.
I have a friend.
Here we go. But, excuse me, there is a new tire that is trying to change all of these negative perceptions. It's been out, a year or so. It's called the Bridgestone Driveguard. Right. And where cars that had run flats are supposed to be replaced with run flats, and you can't put normal run flats on a car that didn't come with run flats, this is a tire designed for cars that don't come with run flats. Our folks at Tire Rack have looked at the tire. They actually like it. It supposedly has touring tire tread and ride qualities. I've driven on them briefly. They don't seem nearly as hard as some of the things that we've seen OEM-wise. They're still expensive. And my only other problem with this tire is that they don't have a whole lot of tire sizes. It's relatively limited. So, Kirby, if you're listening to this, go check out the Bridgestone Driveguard. Take a look at that, because that seems to be the first run flat that might break the mold and that just about anybody can buy. Otherwise, I think we pretty much agree with you.
Yeah, well, I would say the ride quality's gotten better. I mean, the original run flats, they were just normal tires with super stiff sidewalls. Now they've kind of incorporated the run flat technology into stuff like I think in the Honda minivan and stuff like that. Stuff with decent sidewalls still. So the ride quality I don't think is bad in all of them.
But boy, do we hear from people when they come time to have to replace them, and they can't put anything else on unless they buy new wheels. Okay, let's move on. Rant and raves. All right, we had one little rant. How about it when you're watching TV and you have 6 local dealership commercials in a row, and different brands, different dealerships, and you have to wonder, if I own that car dealership, do I honestly think I'm getting my money's worth by having my ad put up against everybody else's? And as a viewer, it gets very tiring. But that just continues the previous conversation. Anybody got anything else? We've had all our snow days. How about the way drivers drive in snow? Or lack of it, lack of talent.
You going to drop your rant, man?
Go.
About the snow, I did not witness anything too horrible. I got to say, I think everyone was pretty well behaved.
Boy, I nearly got broadsided coming out of my development, 4 or 5 foot drifts, and a neighbor just shot out of his driveway. We couldn't see, the street, and, 2 seconds, and he would have been into me. But anyway, it's like, come on, folks. Rant and rave, you had something else you wanted to talk about?
Sure. Something totally off topic.
Good.
I already know that Brian Robinson does not agree with me. Blind spot monitor indicators. Some of them are on the mirror themselves in the outside upper corners.
Yep.
Some of them are on the inside pillar.
Right.
I think there should be like a standardized positioned for them. And somebody brought up the point that just because we drive a lot of different cars, that we're more prone to noticing those differences and getting mixed up between them. I guess if you drive the same car every day, you'll know where they are.
But don't you think some of them are more noticeable than others?
Yeah, I like them when they're in the mirror, because that way you're forced to look at the mirror and you see the light too. With the ones on the pillars, like you see the light on the pillar, you might not necessarily even look at the mirror.
I like the one on the pillars, but yeah, to each his own. Like Volvo, they're on the pillars.
Do you want to have it with or without a chime? In other words,
I like a beep too.
Yeah,
I like a beep.
When you put the blinker on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
I mean, is there ever going to be a time, though, that there is standard blind spot locations? Or,
not unless the government gets involved.
You'd have to do like an actual study and say like where the definite best location is.
Right, and then you get designers hamstrung by they have to put it in a certain spot, and then they get us complaining how every car looks the same when it does because of all the safety regulations everyone has to follow.
I will say that I think when the audible node has been turned off, I tend not to see them period. It's like usually the light flashing by itself isn't enough. It's okay. I don't know. I so far I don't particularly have a favorite about
I noticed
where you put
recently we had a car with a heads-up display. I think it was that Genesis that we had.
Yeah.
Where they would come up, it would actually come up in the
inside
heads
the
up
head
too.
up. That
Yeah,
that was
the left
good.
corner and the right corner. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Classic.
That plus all of the lane keep systems, we're getting to a point, though, that if you don't drive a car a lot, and a lot of us spend limited time in each of the vehicles, all the different noises and all, you don't really interpret them. You're not
like,
quite
what am I
sure.
doing wrong?
What am I doing
Right.
wrong? Where is that coming from? And by that time, it's probably too late.
We had a pilot. Remember, we had a pilot, and some random chime kept going off. We
That's
have
right.
a pilot now. We
We
have a
have a
long-term
pilot
pilot,
now.
and I still haven't figured it out. I drive it, and there's
Is it lane keeping assist?
I don't know. Nothing. There's no visual indicator that pops up at all.
It happened to me today coming back in, and I think it was a proximity on the right side, basically, because we had a wall of snow I was going by, and I think that was saying.
But, I've got
but there was nothing there.
I've got it like driving on the highway. I've heard it before.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had that same situation in the Volvos that we had because I was driving them and there was this like really, really pleasant noise that kept happening. I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice, but it wasn't deterring me from doing it. So I'm like figuring out like, am I losing, like getting out of my lane? And it turns out I was getting out of my lane, but it was actually really, really pleasant.
First thing I do
pleasant
is
warning
turn
sign.
off lane keep. Do you guys ride with lane keep assist?
Not if it's active.
Active is terrible.
Yeah.
I hate the warnings.
I leave it on sometimes when I'm on a long cruise situations where you might zone out a little bit, but around town, it's just a pain in the neck. So. All right, that was good. We're going to wrap up our MotorWeek podcast, number 135. I want to thank everybody around the table, Brian Robinson, Ben Davis, Greg Carlos, and Patrick Lucas. Our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who always strives to make us sound great. Our podcast creator, Bob Mixer. And, of course, Patrick Lucas is also our podcast producer, otherwise known as the guy with the bell.
Ugh, it's lame.
Well, that was pretty lame.
That's
But
terrible.
hope you'll join us again for more podcasts. And, by the way, be sure to watch MotorWeek on your public television stations around the country, also on the Velocity cable networks. Check our website at motorweek.org for all things MotorWeek, our YouTube channel. Basically, if you've got a computer or you've got a phone or you've got a TV, you can find MotorWeek, and we hope to see you again and let you hear us again very soon. Everybody else have anything else to say?
I thought you were going to drop some real major news
No.
there. I was like, am I fired?
Like
Or
my
what-
nightmare come
what
true.
did I do?
All right, Jim, take us out. Good night from Owings Mills.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com and by RockAuto.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.